Bonzarelli Show.
All right, this is the Bonzarelli Show. My name is Joe. Of course, joining me, I got my co-host, my buddy Khiim in the house. Khiim, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, you?
Good. So, Khiim, I owe you an apology. You know, you were saying, like, you know, Godzilla versus Kong, Godzilla versus Kong. I was like, maybe, da-da-da. And I was like, Because I'm thinking back to the Godzilla movie of, like, the 96 with Matthew Broderick and the cameraman, the toes, between the toes. And, like, I was thinking, like, there's going to be a hunk. And even Transformers.
Yeah.
Like those big budget ones, like the first Transformers was amazing.
Yeah, it was solid.
And it was like goosebumps at some times. Like when Optimus Prime is first rolling up, and it's like they transform for the first time. And I remember being with a guy that wasn't into that kind of stuff, but he just like, it's like kind of like Fast and Furious. He just liked seeing cool cars and robots and stuff. So it's like, yeah, he was all, but I kind of had that bad taste in my mouth just thinking, you know, it's not going to be nothing.
Yeah,
but
everybody thinks that when they hear Godzilla and King Kong, they think cheesy monster movie.
Yeah, and it really surprised me what it did. And I watched it and I said, okay, let's do this. And then he said, you better go watch the other two movies, which I did. I'm glad I did because it gave some backstory to stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure which exactly one came out first. Was it Skull Island or the Godzilla? I think it was Skull Island.
I believe sorry. Godzilla came out first, then Skull Island, and then it was King of Monsters. Yeah.
So, and I don't know if, like, the first Godzilla, I know a scientist came over, but I don't know if they kind of knew what they were doing just then or they had to plan. Obviously, Kong Skull Island, they started really building this idea.
You talking about John Goodman?
Yeah. And then the Japanese scientist.
Okay, yeah.
I think he was.
You're talking about from Godzilla?
Yeah, I think he was from the original Godzilla. He carried over, but not really too much more as far as like the message they were telling in that story. The first one, I don't think they were like really had their eye on the ball just yet.
Yeah,
I think they did with the Kong and Skull Island, and I think it's a very important part of the thing. Now, granted, this is Godzilla versus Kong, so it's not Shawshank Redemption. You know what you're getting into, okay?
Yeah,
but the key to what they did is the world building.
Yeah.
And, you know, Marvel set the precedence of how you do that correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, you know, Justice League just blew it. And it's a shame because, like I said, I loved Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I loved the Wonder Woman. And they could not get it together.
Yeah, there's too many hands on it and just no direction, kind of.
But not even that they couldn't get it together. It's the fact that they gave up. It's like I said, I'm not the hashtag Snyderverse. Like I have a passionate view on it.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, if you make a mistake, just roll with it. You could pull it up.
Yeah,
I mean, if you look back, and this is all relevant to what we're talking about because what they achieved was the world building
exactly
and fast because it wasn't perfect, but they built their universe.
Yeah, and they did do it fast. We saw Marvel do it over 20 plus movies. And
if you look back to like the first Avengers and then you watch Endgame, there's a big difference in quality and smoothness and everything because it was a task to bring those guys together and they just pulled it off. They just pulled it off. This was different.
Yeah.
This was different because I went in watching Godzilla and Kong first and then I watched the other two, but then the other two enrich the backstory.
Exactly.
It's like Skull Island, you know, that the native people there.
Yeah, that was the key. Like you said, that movie was the key.
Yeah, because the history with the girl and like her native people. Now I understand those native people. And you know what? And there's probably a lot of people that did that too. There's probably a lot of people that watch Godzilla versus Kong without seeing the other two movies because it's the biggest thing happening right now. Blockbusters are kind of gone right now.
Yeah.
And yes, it's like the stuff with the girl was like amazing. It was really, really good. And just the sign language thing, because you don't, you know, they've shown that apes doing sign language. It's something that happens.
Exactly. Naturally.
So, and it goes further, and it was like a big reveal because I actually saw that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I was shocked and amazed.
Yeah.
And I had watched it without, you know, before I watched Skull Island. So I'm taking it in and I'm relating to this Kong character because he was a well-developed character.
Yeah.
And people, people complaining about like, you need why so many humans. You need somebody explaining some exposition, and there were some flaws.
Yeah, you can't just have two monsters grunting and roaring around the whole movie,
especially for 2 hours. Like
nobody's saying anything.
Yeah, you got to have some kind of realizing in the history and stuff. And as far as like, if I had to say like, as far as telling the story the smoothest, I think it was Skull Island. It established Monarch. It established Kong, his ecosystem. And they were kind of moving, and it was a self-contained story because, I'm watching to see these characters. And even though it happens in the 1940s, which was important because it gave us, why is Kong in this dome?
Yeah.
Like, he was the first one they found.
Exactly.
So they've kept him contained, and inadvertently, by keeping him contained, they kept him hidden from Godzilla.
Yep.
So it kind of summed up that story. And this movie doesn't skimp on the action. I mean, it's not like you're waiting because Kong, it's a while before you see him, and movies have to do that. You have to establish a story before the discovery of the creatures. But now we've seen these two creatures, like we've seen Avengers and seen the Justice League. So it's like, now we just go.
Yeah.
The first scene you see is Kong. First thing you see is Kong. And then you go into the when you start going, well, first, he's on Skull Island. He has a relationship with the girl. They established that. And I thought it was cool before I even knew the sign language, because I'm thinking, okay, this is something interesting. And then they start talking about, the Monarch. That kind of weaves its way through the movies. And then the Apex stuff. So the guy with the podcast, at first, it kind of annoyed me a little bit because I'm like, okay, now you're making her side characters.
Yeah.
And like, what is this? This is a little... But now, because of the history, yes, somebody would be trying to
expose it or
even talk about it.
Yeah,
I mean, if there was giant monsters around, we'd be talking about them. The show would be. We'd be talking about the monster outside.
Yeah.
So it was cool. And it's really, he's investigating. See, I didn't get why the daughter, Madison, was seeking. I thought she was a random character seeking out the podcaster.
Okay.
So I was like, why? What is this? And even like the dad. Now I know the history of the dad, Mark.
Yeah.
The only thing I like, if I had a gripe, is like, why did Mark get such a small role in this movie when he was a proven, established character?
Yeah.
I would have rather have seen Mark take the place. And these are just little qualms as far as like the storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like Mark should have been the pilot of the ship, or had a bigger, or been on the ship.
To me, it didn't really matter. I didn't think it was necessary.
Because the stars are the monsters.
And not even just that, because bringing in these other, I forget their names, but the other two characters that, because it was kind of a story told from three angles. You had Kong and Godzilla, then you had Madison and her squad, and then you had the others that were going into the core of the Earth, or going into Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
So I don't think Mark would have had taken that journey of going into the Earth. That wasn't really a part of this. You know what I mean? That we wouldn't have had that.
Yeah, you're right. He would have been reluctant. Then it would have been kind of like the Jurassic Park, where you're dragging this guy in again.
And he doesn't want to be there, and he hates of it, and we need to just kill them.
Yeah. So I guess the big part it did do is make establish a history for, your mother is, I know who your mother is. I know who your father is, kind of stuff. And gave her what it did was, her history gave her a vested interest because she's seen what happens when these things go wrong. Like when her mother was trying to dominate the world with these monsters and everything. So I understand her character was developed enough to make her proactive in the situation.
Exactly.
So that was good. Like what you said, once see the other movies, you kind of understand. And if you don't see other movies and you're a little annoyed by it, still an awesome movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and there's something to be said about good action when it's not just explosion.
Exactly.
Because what you did was you didn't show like the humans inside the buildings getting scared the whole time. We know there's people in these. It's just show the monsters fighting. They're just having a slugfest.
Exactly.
And they visually changed it up to where it kept being interesting.
Yeah.
So like the first fight where they have on the boat, and then Godzilla. First Godzilla makes his scene pretty quick in the movie.
Yep.
And then they're all about Kong, and Godzilla's like speeding towards him, and you kind of get that suspense because you're like, Kong's tied up. We're in a bad situation here. And they're narrating that like he's a sitting duck out there.
Yeah. And
that was an awesome fight, and I got Kong leaping from ship to ship, and you get suspense, but it's. What I'm saying, it wasn't just them just randomly punching each other. There was a fight. It was like an action scene somebody written, storyboard and planned out.
Exactly.
Instead of just these two guys punching each other. I noticed something the second time watching it, and I think it's actually kind of cool. I don't know if they did it on purpose or something about the way Godzilla moved. When he's just standing up with Kong during the second fight, he looked like a guy in a costume. Like he looked like he was doing that sloppy swipe punch.
Yeah.
But it made sense to him physically because he's only shaped a certain way.
Yeah, look at his body.
Like, he's maybe stronger underwater and stuff. So it didn't look silly. But it just kind of happened to parallel look like a guy in a costume just swiping his hand. And the whole thing was CGI. So it wasn't like it was a sloppy move.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if they thought, let's pay a little tribute. Because when I watch Godzilla, like the 90s one, it's like its own thing. It's a big dinosaur.
And it's crazy because the people who made Godzilla, they don't respect that movie at all. And like me growing up as a kid, my age group, that was the Godzilla I was introduced to first.
Yeah.
I saw that 90s one and then, or I believe it was actually like maybe early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s it came out.
Yeah.
With the guy from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I think. Or no, it's not him.
Matthew Broderick, the guy from Ferris Bueller.
Yeah. Ferris Bueller, Go-Go Gadget.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one with him. So I saw that one and I liked it, but apparently the guy who made Godzilla, he doesn't like it.
Yeah,
they even got it to where like that name was like changed so that way it doesn't come up when you look up for this Godzilla and everything.
Because what they did was they're like, how can we make Godzilla believable? So they tried too much to justify him.
Yeah.
So what these guys did was they found a way to justify this Earth.
Yeah.
And how it's running like that. And these creatures and how they're underwater, but they're coming up for threats or something's awakening them.
Yeah.
And, as far-fetched as it is, they pulled it off and they made it believable.
Yeah.
So it is, and like the same way I'm seeing it for the first time. So like these movies, and we were looking at the numbers before and it didn't make sense, but now it's making sense to me because, King of Monsters worldwide was like 386 million. And then Skull Island was 560 million over that. So this one's at 338 million. But there's two reasons for that. It's only been out for a month, I think, right? Yeah. Or a month or two?
Yeah.
And
a month.
It's also competing with HBO Max. I'm not realizing that. So what I'm saying is it's still impressive that it's getting that close with it being on HBO Max.
Yeah.
With everything it's fighting against between coronavirus. Because if there was no HBO Max and maybe word of mouth or maybe what I'm saying, if there was no coronavirus and there wasn't the HBO Max.
Yeah.
The same way I watched it on TV, I can't see me just letting that sit in the theaters and not seeing it.
Yeah.
I feel like even if I didn't see the other two, I was like, well, like theoretically, it's that simple. You've got Godzilla versus King Kong. It's like, the whole world's been waiting for that. I know they've done it once before, but like, wow, you're making this. Yeah. So it probably, with everything not being the way it was, it probably would have blown the other two out of the water. Same way I'm seeing it for the first time, I think other people are probably going, because it's on HBO Max, the other two movies are there.
Yeah.
That being said, going forward, it's kind of curious to see, because now they got a little, because even some of the writing flaws and some of the things, like, okay, like if I had to say, like, the energy getting uploaded to a computer didn't make any sense to me, but it's nothing took me out of it. Nothing took me out of the moment.
Yeah, it didn't remove you too far.
Yeah, because it's a gorilla fighting a giant lizard. So you're not like, I don't believe that.
Yeah,
this
that
is
science
stupid.
on that doesn't make sense.
That doesn't add up. You're taken for what it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like with what I saw, I'm vested enough in the universe that even moving forward, like I'm saying, is they could learn lessons and do things. I don't think Justice League performed bad in theaters. I think it was like the audience reception.
Yeah.
I think studios give a little too much power to audience reception sometimes.
Yeah, especially when it comes to like the comic book world. The comic book fans are toxic sometimes.
They are, but Marvel, I don't feel like Marvel responds the way I think Warner Brothers freaked out.
Yeah.
I think Warner Brothers, and maybe it was because, the things happened with Zack Snyder that Whedon had to take over and the movie and the buzz, but I'm sure it still must have made some money. Like, what I'm saying? Like, I can't see it as a total failure where they're like, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
Even if you invested in going forward with Man of Steel, or the next Wonder Woman, just kind of like, okay, let's all get in our corners and regroup.
Yeah.
And maybe we rushed it or we didn't have a good plan.
Exactly.
Just the fact they just let it go, and now DC's just a big mess.
Yeah.
Even like, Joker was great, but it's like a take it or leave it for people. It's not like people were like dying to see the next DC thing because you don't know. You don't.
Nothing is really nothing's really certain in there.
Yeah, and then even like what is it? The Suicide Squad. They just started all over.
Yeah. Kind
of with Harley Quinn. So they're just and it's not the worst thing because you're just throwing paint at the wall, but it just there's importance to world building.
Yeah.
And it's something as silly as Godzilla and King Kong. You've made an Earth where monsters exist. Kind of the curious things. Well, let's go back to the movie before I talk to the future of it. But it's like, Hollow Earth.
Yeah.
The Hollow Earth scene, conceptually and visually, was beautiful.
Yeah. It made me wish I had saw it on a big screen versus watching on HBO.
Yeah, just the idea behind it, and even like Kong just kind of floating through and just being a curious ape about it. It was just a great scene to watch with no action.
Yeah,
and there was something to be said about like King Kong's acting, and even Godzilla's acting. There was a lot besides the human exposition. There was a lot being said in their eyes and their expressions and stuff.
Yeah, especially Kong. I know. I was gonna back to like the creator of Godzilla. That's one thing that he's always been very, 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 very like restrictive about is Godzilla becoming emotive. He doesn't want Godzilla making smiles or faces. And I think that's why he disowned that early or late 90s, 2000 is because Godzilla is supposed to just be a force. Like a force, period. Like, not really emotional. It's just a force. He's there to do a job. Like,
And that's how they're handling him. Like, he kind of wiped the floor with Kong a couple times.
Yeah.
And, Kong got his second round in.
Yeah.
And then real quick lost. But, and even at the end, they just kind of they just like acknowledge each other.
There was a slight glimmer in his eyes where he's just like, all right.
Yeah. It's like, all right, we got no beef. I'm out. But, and even Kong, even like his going underground, is it half to stay out of, Godzilla's way? It's half like he found a new home, doesn't bother Earth. But it was curious to see. Now, did you watch a lot of Godzilla before the movies? I haven't.
Which ones?
Like the original Godzillas. Like
no.
Okay, see, I haven't either. Because what I'm wondering is it just seemed like they burned through a lot of monsters really fast. But it doesn't mean they can't make new monsters. It's not like these monsters.
I think I don't know which movie. It might have been Godzilla vs. King Kong. It was either that one or King of Monsters. I think they stated that there was like in the teens of other monsters that they know that are active that they are monitoring that we haven't seen yet.
And it's half of it's like, well, how good a story do you tell of these monsters coming up? But it's not really bad because you did 3 of them.
Yeah.
And they all had their own kind of storyline going. And then they could challenge, if the studio's smart, they will challenge themselves. Because
these monsters have personalities.
Yeah.
It's not like they're all just malevolent and wanting to just destroy.
Yeah.
Like King Ghidorah was like that. But then you have Mothra, which is kind of just like out there trying to just mate.
Yeah.
But in that mating process.
Oh, the Mothra stuff was cool in that Godzilla movie.
Exactly. But in the mating process is destroying stuff. Then you've got Godzilla where he's just kind of the Titan who just wants to keep everything safe. Then you've got Kong where he's just like, as long as I've got a home, I'm good. We didn't even talk about Mechagodzilla either.
Oh, yeah. And once again, theoretically, if you thought about Mechagodzilla, and probably like the first time he appeared, it sounds very corny.
Yeah.
It was cool. Yeah. It was a point where like he was actually menacing. And you're like, oh man, like you're actually scared for Godzilla.
Yeah,
and he's hitting Godzilla with missiles as he's charging him. And Godzilla's, proved himself in his own movie. He's the king of monsters, and this thing's just wiping the floor with him
with ease.
With ease. And it's like, and he's in trouble. And then it's like and then Kong comes too, and the 2 of them fighting him. But the guy that was inside, that was the original pilot, was supposed to be the son of the scientist that killed himself underwater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was like his last name was there, but it wasn't really I don't understand why it had to be him, because as far as the motives and stuff, but it was like a little history, and probably something got lost in a deleted scene. Or,
yeah, he might, because you said his father died?
He was the scientist who, when they went underwater and they threw the nuke at Godzilla, he was the one that went to Godzilla and says, "Goodbye, old friend." Like he put the nuke right down and killed himself to charge up Godzilla. Because
it would be crazy. You would think that if that was his son, he'd be working with Monarch instead of Apex. So maybe he has some kind of gripe about losing his father.
Yeah, and it was just like something, like I said, if little mistakes were made, maybe it's like focus less here, focus. And we say that about every show. You know, you could change direction in the narrative. The important thing was the movie, the things you went to see, the Godzilla versus Kong. It was like, as far as like point A, point B, point C, it was very well paced. Because
now, I want to say one thing. I think because you brought him up, I think it's important. The psychic link. The fact that humans are able to psychically link with these monsters.
Yeah.
I think that was a man-made, like, forced one. But I think, well, not even think, they showed the little girl has a psychic link with Kong.
I thought it was a sign language.
Sign language, too.
Yeah.
Like Kong is angry. Like, even before he started sign language, she knew Kong is angry, Kong is scared. Like, he was speaking to her. So it made me, after watching that movie, even though I had already saw Skull Island before, going back and watching it again, I think that there was a psychic link between Samuel L. Jackson's character and Kong at that time, and that's why Kong.
That was cool.
And that's why Kong kind of took we're at war. You know what I mean? Because he was able to hear or like read like Samuel L. Jackson's coming after me.
There's something to be said about that because they used the what's the Ghidorah is the king of monsters. They use Ghidorah's skull to power the machine. Granted, they did it more directly. But the point being is these monsters with their abilities and then like the radiation that surrounds them, once again, groundwork being laid. If you bring all that up, yes, it could affect humans. The world is changing. It's a new world, whether they like it or not.
And even when you look at the tribe, how he said they don't talk, but after a while you start to understand them.
Yeah.
So, going back watching that after watching Godzilla vs. King Kong, I was like, okay, the girl's a mute. But then I remembered, whole tribe didn't talk either. So I don't think they're all mutes. I think they're all just telepathic.
Yeah, or just decide not to speak or something. Yeah, but there is something because there's a symbiotic relationship that's being formed in these movies between the humans and the monsters. Between the humans that live there
and the monsters.
Because yes, your first reaction to go, okay, let's go, because the normal movie would go, the monster shows up, everybody just fires every missile they got in.
Yeah,
but it's bigger than that. There's like the humans barely have made a dent in any monster.
Yeah,
the only time they actually help is when they like fire some missiles to buy Kong like a second.
Yeah.
Or by Godzilla sometime.
Yeah.
But they've never really made a scratch in any monster, which is besides Mechagodzilla, but they got nothing.
Even when they've hit Kong with the nuke, he regenerates and comes back.
But it makes it cool.
It makes him sleep.
Yeah. But exactly. If they would never have got him, like nothing would have happened,
Yeah.
But it makes it, that's the role of the human to kind of work. They don't have a chance to destroy these monsters.
Yeah.
So they have to pick and choose which monsters they're going to let make the decisions.
Who they're going to align with.
And then even like Godzilla, they established, they're like, well, Godzilla, we had a peace with him. He left us alone. Because you can't just say getting rid of Godzilla is the answer because he's the strongest one. What else? If you get rid of him, what else do you bring on? The second fight with the axe, Kong with the axe.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it again because they were talking about like an ancient war between the two species. So if Kong is in a part where his species, and that was his domain in the center of the earth. Gorillas are naturally smarter creatures with more pendable fingers and everything.
Yeah.
So the fact that they would fashion an axe out of a scale of one of those but out of a scale of like a Godzilla.
Yeah.
And that would be a weapon that could, deal with the energy and everything.
Yeah.
Is that fight? The fight in Hong Kong was beautiful.
Yeah, definitely.
Like the neon
lights and all that, yeah.
And the imagery of just like I said, instead of just seeing people cowering as Godzilla's elbow comes through the window, we don't need to see that. We've seen that a billion times.
Yeah.
Just show us those two fighting. We can figure out what's happening in the buildings.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And you just show like Kong just leaping with a lit axe, taking that charge.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like beautiful imagery.
Exactly.
And it made it intense. It wasn't just it wasn't...
Yeah.
It wasn't stupidity. It was a good fight. It was a suspenseful fight because the whole time I'm watching, I'm like, because I didn't know. I had no idea. I thought one of them was going to die. Because they said one will fall. And I just figured, okay, this is it. One of them's going to die.
Yeah.
And they're both going to die. And then even the part where they teamed up, it wasn't like forced because there's an instinctual habitat and there's a law of order. So Kong can't defeat Godzilla, but that Mecha Godzilla can't be allowed to exist.
Yeah.
Instinctually, all these animals are trying to preserve their ecosystem.
Exactly.
Even though it's a bigger ecosystem. So it's not in Kong's really. Kong's only beef with Godzilla was they were getting each other's way.
Exactly.
Kong was just doing what they were making him
he's
do.
like, you're coming at me, bro.
Yeah. Kong's on his way to, plus he's another alpha animal. So instinctually, Godzilla sees a threat because of their history together.
Exactly.
And even he's in Hong Kong and he straight shoots a laser straight down to Hollow Earth. And it's kind of cool how they made like those tunnels. They established that in the Godzilla movie. He has these underwater tunnels.
Yeah.
So even if you think, because even if the center of the Earth is smaller than the Earth, like Texas is just a speck on the Earth.
Yeah.
Texas is huge.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
huge. So yes, if you take the Earth down a few notches, yes, you could see that many monsters living down there.
Yeah.
Like tons of them.
Yeah.
And then if you have more aquatic ones like Godzilla that kind of make their way through the water, kind of like that level in between.
Yeah, in between worlds, yeah.
It's all well structured because the important part was somebody was like, how do we make this thing work and how do we sell it? And it's like, I'm sold. Like you made it work. That it's not corny and stupid. And you made it work. The Monarch stuff it was almost like starting a movie in the 40s. That was their Captain America movie. Let's establish a history because back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because back then the technology developed. Now I don't know why Godzilla, because Godzilla could have just been underwater. If Kong's by himself on this island, not doing nothing, however, whatever their history was, they never encountered each other before.
Yeah.
And you go, hey, how come? It made it work. But I think overall it was but I think moving forward, I think the excitement for this is going to be bigger than if it didn't go the way it did. I'm saying everything with the theaters and the HBO Max. Like I said, I think a lot of people like me saw Godzilla vs. Kong, like, oh, let me check out the other ones.
Yeah.
That are right there in the same channel. Like, did you like that? Here's some more. And then all of a sudden, like, wow, wait, they're making something here. Oh, we just got woke up because now it's another contender. It's another Star Wars. It's another Marvel.
Exactly.
Universal Studios tried to do that.
Yeah, with the MonsterVerse.
Yeah, I think it was kaput. I can't even remember what they did. Like, which one came out? It was
I think what blew it was Tom Cruise's The Mummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Mummy blew it, but prior to that, they had already did The Wolfman. They had already did Swamp Man or the Swamp Thing.
Did they actually do those movies?
They did it, but his movie was off into like a love story, but it still introduced that character, which was going to be a part of the universe. But they did, I
don't know what it was about those movies. I just don't remember any of them coming out. Like, I don't remember The Mummy or having interest in it. It's just because it was the Marvel fever. Everybody wanted to build the universe.
Everybody was trying to do the same thing.
Maybe had things not worked out, they would. I don't see people sleeping on Godzilla versus Kong, even if you slept on the two individual ones.
Yeah.
I think you would go see it and maybe go backtrack. But I think the momentum of this little bubble, like I said, if this was like if they did a rematch or something else, and all of a sudden, it's a couple of years from now, everything's, the theaters are back and full thing, I think it would just you'll start seeing numbers like demolish the other two.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a good part of cinematic thing, Khiim. I'm glad you turned me on to that because I was sleeping on it. I went back and watched the other ones, but it was really, I don't know how to say it. It was a surprise feat.
Yeah, exactly. It was something nobody really expected. Like watching, because I had watched all three of those movies, I didn't expect King Kong vs. Godzilla, and I didn't expect the universe to be what it was.
Yeah.
Because seeing those movies separately, all you get really is that there's monsters and they're fighting.
Yeah.
And somebody, but they fleshed it out well.
Yeah. It's hard to go, how do you top that? But you just make a Kong movie, you just make a Godzilla movie, and you kind of rebuild, and if they cross paths again, or if they need to. But yeah, definitely a feat. I think I'm into the MonsterVerse now, so I'm glad we got like a new cinematic universe. Like, I'm bought in. Everybody, like I said, you have to have the patience to learn from your mistakes. Like, even if you go back to Captain Marvel, and people would say, what was wrong with that movie? What was wrong with it was they tried to make things different and start from back to forth. They just tried to do something different because they were doing the same motions. There's always the hurdle of the first movie establishing the character. And it just, they took a different approach and it just was a little flat. It wasn't horrible, but it's just, but they're doing new Captain Marvel too. They're not giving up. They're going to, and now we got Monica coming in. I don't want to get too much into Marvel because it's a Godzilla show, but what I'm saying is,
you can't give up.
You can't give up.
You can't give up. Yeah.
So, so once again, I want to thank Khiim for being here. And we will see you guys in a few weeks.